and welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new, are you lost? And for those of you that have returned, thank you for coming back, supporting me. I assume we're friends. If not, we are now, buddy. For those of you that are unaware, I am white, and also I am a feminist, which I think therefore gives me the right to make the sweeping statement, white feminism sucks. If you don't know what I'm talking about, white feminism is a very surface level, entry level type of feminism, which perpetrates white standards across a plethora of issues and often ignores the extra struggles of someone's race, someone's religion, someone's sexuality, someone's gender identity, aka intersectionality. Now especially, I think people are a lot more open to hearing voices that are not their own, recognising potentially that their library is actually just full of middle-class white women writing about the struggles of daily life. And while that's great, and these are voices that obviously deserve the right to be heard, they are often the only voices being heard. So I want to take you, and also myself, through a little journey of trying to find non-white feminist authors. So the way this is going to work, I've got two authors that I have read, I know, I greatly admire, and then I have two authors whom I'd heard of, I had a very basic understanding, and aside from just recommending books in this video, I'm aware right now, I don't know about you, I struggle to take in fiction. Maybe it's the heat, it's 110 degrees right now. I am also going to recommend maybe a video, maybe a podcast episode, something a bit more easygoing. I'm not bothered if you're reading, but I think you need to know about these people. I think you need to hear what they're going through, and in general, just embrace intersectional feminism. Honestly, researching this whole thing was so much fun. Sometimes I forget how much I love feminism and then I fall down a hole, and I always get a little bit sad that I didn't go ahead with my master's. In the long run, it was definitely a good choice. I should have not been in academia this year. But also part of the reason I chose not to do a master's in women's studies in the end is because I realized there were so many resources out there that meant I didn't have to follow an academic path in order to take in all of this kind of wonderful literary scholarship. There are some things that are inexplicably really attractive to me, and it turns out people that are passionate about things that they care about, or people that are educated in topics and can speak articulately about them, turns out that's up there, top 3 stuff. I've learned that is something that I bloody love, and also thunderstorms. Something's a little bit sexy about thunderstorms. If you disagree, feel free to leave a comment and we can have a conversation. What's the sexiest weather? That's not where we're going here. Let's get on with it, shall we? So the first author I'm going to talk about, she is quite a household name. She's a Nigerian author who does fiction as well as non-fiction. It is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. If you want a fiction book by her, Americana is the big one everyone recommends. I also have on my shelf Half of Yellow Sun, but if you're looking for a non-fiction book, she has published a couple of essay collections. The one I have is We Should All Be Feminists. If you don't want to buy it, which I would understand because I think these tend to be like £7 when they're being first published. She has a wonderful TED Talk of the same essay you can check out, but if I'm gonna recommend a TED Talk of hers, I would just highly encourage you to check out The Danger of a Single Story. This was recommended to me by my friend Becky when I said how I only really read fiction rather than non-fiction on my Bookstagram account, and how therefore I maybe didn't feel like I had a good representation of voices people should be listening to in times of social movement. And she sent me this to highlight how in reality, by reading authors of colour, you are able to just not homogenize an entire race, an entire group, an entire collection of people. And in that TED Talk, Chimamanda actually makes an example of how when she had published a book and she had someone come along and speak to her after hearing her talk about it, she said how it was so sad that Nigerian men are all so abusive, like the father character in her book. And the retort for that was, it's funny actually, because I just finished reading American Psycho and I think it's so sad that all American men are serial killers. And obviously she was saying it with jest, but The idea that if you only read one story or one type of story from a specific identity, whether it's race, whether it's religion, whether it's just a different culture in the world, then you will have a very short-sighted, two-dimensional view of how an entire society may be living. And you may assume everyone's like a cookie-cutter version of this fictional or non-fictional book that you've read. So in reality, just by reading a collection of non-white authors from all walks of life, guess what? You may be able to view them as three-dimensional people with thoughts and feelings and attitudes and a way of life that doesn't necessarily run itself down to one or two stereotypes that you read in a book. Amazing! Next up, we're going to talk about someone who I had heard of. I got her mixed up with, I think it's Bella Delphine. Is that the girl who, she's like an e-girl and has like pink hair, and she recently came back and announced she was opening an OnlyFans. I'm very sorry in advance. The person I'm talking about is Bell Hooks. Now, when I was reading about all of the stuff Bell Hooks has done throughout the ages, I just want everything she's ever written to be somehow liquidized, IV'd straight into me. I just want to surround myself with it, like soak my whole brain with everything you've ever spoken about, please. So the first book I'd heard of by Bell Hooks, and also I've had it on my to be read list on Goodreads for maybe 2 years now, but I've never picked it up, which is bad, was Feminism is for Everyone, Passion Politics. But after learning about all of the other things she's published, oh my god. So her first book that I could find that had ever been published was in 1983, 1984, and it was called From Margin to Centre. And it speaks about how in Western society, feminism is never going to work until you realise that you can never make all men and women equal, until you acknowledge the fact that men are not all equal in society from a get-go. Things like race, religion, if you have a disability. But first you need to be able to close those disparities in society for women to ever be able to women and men to ever actually be able to be viewed as equals. And this was in the 80s. The woman was onto something and she knew it. Bell Hooks has also done a number of media publications, which may be another way that people have heard her name floating around the academic sphere. One of the books she's done is called From Real to Real. Talks about sex, class, and race in the movies, and again, how representation maybe leads you to think that people are one way, but guess what? Everybody's different. People are their own people, not just based on characters you see in the cinema. And then if you want further content by Bell Hooks that isn't a book, you can check out a load of The New School on YouTube, interviews with her. I actually found one which was titled Beyonce is a Terrorist. And while I don't necessarily agree with what she's saying in that, I think it's an interesting dialogue into the idea of how the idea that sex sells can be viewed as feminist and not feminist, the idea of the male gaze versus the female gaze. There's just a lot to unpack with it, and I think it, if nothing else, a statement like that and her discussing the idea that Beyonce calls herself a feminist but then uses her sexuality to promote her music through image is either harmful or is it potentially beneficial to feminism, you know? There's a lot to unpack, and it would be really cool to discuss these things with people, with everyone. Let's talk about it. If we swing back to authors that I have read books by and I do own books by, the next person I'm going to talk about is Nimco Ali and her book What We're Told Not to Talk About But We're Going to Anyway, Women's Voices from East London to Ethiopia. This book is so informative and so brilliant. Not only is it written by Nimco Ali, who is a Somali woman who has experienced FGM and has started something called the Fire Foundation, which aims to end FGM by 2030. More on that in a second. She has interviewed a number of people over, I think she said it took her about 2 years, from all walks of life, all cultures, all pasts, on 4 topics. 4 topics included in this book are periods, orgasms, pregnancy, and the menopause. Said it before, I'll say it again. Books that talk about menopause I think are really important. I think the idea of ageism and ignoring voices of feminists over a certain age is again quite a white middle class young feminist attitude, and I hate it. But also this speaks about issues that are maybe becoming slightly less taboo in Western society, such as periods and sex, from so many different viewpoints. So you have stories about people getting their first period when they are a refugee escaping from a war zone. You have stories about what it's like to get your period when you're homeless. Nimco Ali herself lends a lot of stories because, as I say, she experienced FGM. For those of you that don't know what FGM is, it stands for female genital mutilation. Nimco Ali had it when she was 7. The global age of FGM is 5, which raises a lot of questions when people say it's to encourage chastity, because who's having sex with a 5-year-old? What are you doing? She started something called the 5 Foundation, which intends to end FGM by 2030, and she explains it beautifully on an episode of Doing It with Hannah Witten, but I'm going to try and encapsulate it a little bit here. Please listen to that episode. I've listened to it maybe 4 times just to truly try and soak in everything. The woman is so articulate and just clear with everything that she means, so purposeful and just, I think, really clever. So the idea is, by going into countries that practice FGM and introducing education and contraception, the women who may be subject to this situation, while it won't stop them experiencing FGM, it will postpone births, allowing the 5 Foundation to introduce legislation and laws that will make FGM in these countries illegal. What they're saying is, by introducing education, they are allowing themselves more time. So while they can't prevent the FGM that is happening right now, it means that there are fewer children being born in the next 10 years. And then by the time that these educated, contraception-heavy girls are ready to have babies, those children will no longer be in a situation where FGM is expected through their society, which I think is so clever. She also speaks about how, at the end of the day, introducing education and contraception would prevent global warming, because the largest thing that will offset your carbon footprint is not having children. Introducing more people into the world immediately means there's a new person to create their own carbon footprint. Please just listen to that podcast episode, because some people are so clever and I just want to be friends with all of them. I think it's so just incredible when people's brains like click all of these things together and just come with a whole picture like that. Oh my goodness. So the final author we're going to talk about is someone that I didn't even realize she was a woman of color. And again, this just comes down to my assumption that everyone is white. I'm working on it, and we all need to. It's important to recognize our flaws so we can move forward. Is Roxane Gay. Roxane Gay is a queer woman of colour. She has done a number of publications. The main book that I think people will have heard of is Bad Feminist, and I just want to read like an excerpt that I found from Bad Feminist. To have privilege in one or more areas does not mean you are wholly privileged. Surrendering to the acceptance of privilege is difficult, but it is really all that is expected. The acknowledgement of my privilege is not the denial of the ways I have been and am marginalised, the ways I have suffered. Which again, just comes down to that beautiful word, I'm gonna drop it again, watch out kids, intersectional feminism. We love it. Roxane Gay is also very open about a number of issues, including fat phobia. In fact, she was abused as a child and how that impacted her body image. And also, she is a woman who sticks to her convictions. She pulled her book deal as soon as she heard that Simon & Schuster had offered $250,000 to an alt-right activist, because she said that she wouldn't want any of her work to be associated with a publishing house that encouraged hate speech. We love to see conviction in our actions. Get it, bitch. On top of generally just being a badass individual, she has a podcast. She has her own podcast called Here to Slay. It is on Luminary, which you can get a 7-day free trial from, and you can listen to some of the episodes on there if you want. Otherwise, it's a subscription fee of like £4 a month, which is way less than you pay for Spotify, but I also understand that not everyone is gonna be able to ship out kind of money right now. So there is, if you currently have any other podcast listening, an episode of her on Jamila Jamil's I Weigh show. I really enjoyed listening to her on that, but I had to stop because I'm not a massive fan of Jamila Jamil as an interviewer, but I do think Roxane Gay was very good at kind of ensuring that her narrative was the one that was being heard and not the expectations of answers from the interviewer. No shade. But if you download Here to Slay, I am currently halfway through the Black Nerd Culture episode, And she has such a soothing voice when she's interviewing and having conversations, and it's really beautifully counteracted by the like bouncy enthusiasm that comes from the co-host, Tressie McMillan Cottom. So I really just think that was a wonderful podcast, and I highly recommend you check it out. It was so much fun to listen to. And there we have it. We have 4 women of colour that we can all check out and listen to and try and understand feminism from a broader spectrum. If you are interested in any of the books, feel free to check them out on my affiliate link. A couple of videos ago, I was making jokes like, oh, I'm talking about hive.co.uk so much, I wish I had an affiliate link. Well, guess what, suckers? Now I got one. Hive.co.uk is a great resource that allows you to support independent bookstores, whether they're open or not right now. Obviously, we're in a pandemic, which has had a huge impact on independent and local businesses. In particular, you know me, I am very anti-Amazon, and I don't like it when you give your money to a trillionaire. So using hive.co.uk, if you click any of the links down below and you make purchases, at the end of it, you can designate your sale to a local independent bookstore. They will suggest some based on your postcode, but also I have mentioned a few that I personally am a big fan of in a previous video. By using the affiliate link, it allows me to earn a small commission. And this Pride Month, I really want to use my, platform for good. The first paycheck that they offer is when you hit £20, so I don't see it happening for a while because at the end of the day I am quite a small platform, but I really want to donate that money to stonewall.org.uk. They do amazing work around the country in support of LGBTQ+ individuals, and as I say, I don't need that money. There are many people out there that do, so if that encourages you in any way, your money's not going to go to me. I don't want it. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, supporting me, supporting each other. I hope everyone is staying safe out there. I hope everyone's being nice. All of the shops are basically open. Cafes are open as of next week, which means I'm back to work. And I just really hope everyone's being really kind. And more than anything, I just want to ask, please wear your masks. By wearing a mask, you reduce the chance of spreading COVID by 5 times. Like, if that was a medication, you'd be popping pills every single day. I don't fully understand the opposal to wearing masks right now. It's the easiest thing you can do. They're on offer on Etsy. You can buy them through a number of stores. Supermarkets have them. B&M are selling them. I understand a lot of them are reusable and that's not necessarily environmentally friendly. So potentially, as I say, check out Etsy, or maybe even you have some friends with a sewing kit that will be able to help you. Please stay kind, please stay safe, please just be nice to everyone in the service industry that's out in the world right now, because Lord knows, they may not want to be there, they may not feel safe themselves, but we all got to pay our rent somehow. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being a kind person. All I have to say is goodbye, 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 goodbye.